Oh.
Hi.
Hi.
We're re-recording.
Welcome back to Chatterbox, episode 2.
Yes. We've been trying to do this episode multiple times, and we have failed.
So this is now going to be attempt number 4.
Yes. So let's start off with emotional labor.
Yeah, we're going to do a series on emotional labor, probably about 4 or 5 episodes. This is the first, which will focus on gender and emotional labor.
Yeah.
Emotional labor is the kind of work that people do to produce an emotion of some kind in someone else. It's generally some kind of caretaking labor, whether it's servers in a restaurant or medical carers or house cleaners or
Housewives.
Even, insurance people. Like, there's all kinds of things that can be classified, at least in part, as emotional labor.
Yeah. I mean, and also, there is just straight up emotional labor, which is like, therapy, listening to your friends, looking after your friends when they hit a low patch, helping them get out of depression, being there for them, that kind of just straight up emotional labor.
And as that list of examples points out, it is both paid and unpaid labor.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make a significant distinction between the two.
Yeah. Another term that you might want to look up if you're interested in more is affective labor, which is, it's slightly different, but it's essentially the fancy word for it.
And we'll try and put some resources in the description box below if you're interested in pursuing some of these questions.
Or, as PBS Ideas Channel would call it, the doobly-doo.
Yes, in the doobly-doo.
So, to start off with, Manic Pixie Dream Girl. The Manic Pixie Dream Girl is the one that we're going to focus on for specifically gender, or women doing the work. It's not, the work itself is not only done by women, and there are very rare examples of Manic Pixie Dream Girls who happen to be the other gender. But primarily,
the Manic Pixie Dream Girls tend to be girls, tend to be young, tend to be pretty, tend to be quirky. They are characters that have what often gets called joie de vivre, right? They carry around with them a kind of joy in life.
Okay.
And their role
is to help the male protagonist in a film, TV show, whatever, any story really, to help the male protagonist get out of his funk, find his way, to be...
find meaning in his life. Yeah.
The main difference between the Manic Pixie Dream Girl that most people use for that term and what it was originally defined as is that she has to be kind of two-dimensional. You can kind of just replace her with a set of life events. Like, there's no real...
So the original definition of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl comes from a piece written by Nathan Rabin in
a Salon article.
A Salon article, which we'll also link. And he describes the Manic Pixie Dream Girl as a function that is only defined in terms of the male protagonist. So she has no backstory, she has no history, she has no character development within the film. She just exists to do a certain kind of emotional labor on behalf of the protagonist. The trope of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, which now often gets abbreviated as MPDG, right? And so you'll see that often. That trope has, we would argue, and many other people have argued, is way overused now. So any quirky female character gets called a Manic Pixie Dream Girl, whether or not she has context, whether or not she has backstory, whether or not she has character development, whether or not she's primarily there to assist a male protagonist.
Yeah.
So the idea is way overused to the extent that its author has disavowed it entirely.
It's like, I regret it.
Yeah.
I would say that we'll get into more about the misuse later on, but I would say that basically what happened was that people forgot the first half of the definition, which is the, like, there's nothing about this character that is anything. Like, they're not really a character.
Yeah.
They're sort of
they're
a
an
plot.
NPC.
Yeah, they're an NPC. They're a plot point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which actually has a long connection to female characters more generally, and we'll put some links to works in narratology and film studies that talk about that as well.
Yeah, I mean,
so let's get on to the examples.
Yeah. Sorry.
The two of the previous times that we recorded this, it went well over half an hour, so we're going to try and be succinct. You can let us know if you think it's too succinct.
We have a little stopwatch here telling us how much time we've spent. So yeah, the first two examples that we're going to look at for the Manic Pixie Dream Girl are two examples of what we would say are successful uses.
Pretty standard, full-on, clearly MPDG films.
Yeah. The
first one
is Elizabethtown, which is the eponymous film that this definition came from.
Right.
And in it, there's a sad man who is sad. And then
he sat on a plane.
And he sat on a plane. And then there's a happy girl who is happy, and she's happy on a plane.
Because she's a flight attendant.
Yes, and
so she's frequently happy on a plane.
Yes, as we all know, flight attendants, super joyous. And she basically just spends the whole flight hanging out with him, and somehow gets away with it.
She sees he's sad, and she decides to take him on as a project.
Yes. Which, I mean, you know, we've all been there.
Well, probably not everybody, but you and I have. So.
Anyway, but yeah, so throughout the film, I think he was originally suicidal.
I think that's right. I can't remember now, but.
So throughout the film, she, like, gets him to go on adventures and bring him joy and stuff like that, and she's, like, you know, doing, I guess, that.
She does happy things.
Yeah. Which isn't terrifying.
What do you want to say about it?
Oh, yeah. And then, like, at the end, they end up happily ever after, I guess. Like, it's very fluff.
Yeah. It's not a big, important film, as you can hear, and you may or may not have heard of it. I hadn't until I started looking at the Manic Pixie Dream Girl material.
Because we have taste.
Because I think these are not films that not everybody watches these films. Not all of them, anyway.
Yes.
Anyway, so let's move on to the second example.
Mr. Magoo.
Yeah. Mo insists on calling this film Mr. Magoo. It's Mr. Megorium's Magic Emporium.
Look up Mr. Magoo, though.
Because that's fun. Has nothing to do with the Manic Pixie Dream Girl or emotional labor, at least not obviously. I would have to think about it. Mr. Megorium.
Mr. Megorium's Magic Emporium is... I would argue that at the end, the character is exactly Manic Pixie Dream Girl. I would say that in the beginning she's not, so it's not exactly fitting the trope correctly, but basically what happens is she devolves into one.
Yeah, and oddly enough, it isn't primarily in service of a male protagonist, because she's the protagonist of the film. But what happens is the owner of Mr. Megorium's Magic Emporium, the character who gives the name to the film, Mr. Megorium, is a magic character who makes the shop be itself magic. It's full of magic. The toys are magic. Everything is magic.
He's sort of one of the other emotional labor forms, you know, like the kind of older guide.
He is. And we will talk about age and some other types of emotional labor tropes in subsequent episodes. But he
leaves her the shop.
He's ready to move on. Yeah. And so he leaves her the shop, and she is not ready to take on the shop.
Well, I mean, she's also just lost her friend.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, she's grieving.
Yeah.
But secondly, she doesn't think that she has the magic that's required to sustain the shop the way he does. And so slowly the shop gets less and less magic and sadder, and everything gets
It sort of begins to die.
The shop begins to die.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so...
eventually, she, over time, figures out how to be magic and how to get over her sadness in the space of 1.5 hours or whatever. And magically magics the magic back.
Into the shop, into the lives of the other characters, and into herself.
And so because of that, she is happy, happy, happy all the time, spreading happiness, great happiness, happy, happy, happy.
So what's interesting, I think, about...
I'm not bitter.
What's interesting about the film is that it's not exactly the definition of a manic pixie dream girl, because she isn't doing it solely on behalf of the male protagonist, but in fact, there are other men around her on whose behalf she does this work, right? It's in part for Mr. Megorium in order to allow him to move on. It's in part for the accountant who becomes her love interest, and it's in part for a little boy who is very closely attached to the shop and also grieves when the shop begins to die. So she is, without question, an emotional laborer, and she develops more and more into having that as her primary characteristic.
Yeah.
Whereas at the beginning of the film, she was a more complicated character.
She flattens.
She flattens somehow and becomes a manic pixie dream girl.
Yeah. So, now for our two incorrect examples, which everybody loves.
So these are films, both of which are absolutely routinely talked about as examples of manic pixie dream girls.
And as counterexamples.
Yes, and also frequently as counterexamples. And
People just can't agree.
We'll put links to some of the lists of films and other works that have manic pixie dream girls, and those lists are enormous.
And
not really. And to be taken with a grain of salt.
Or apart.
And then we'll also link to some people talking about counterexamples in the way that we will now.
Yes, but which is where we ruthlessly stole our ideas.
I don't think they're stolen, but...
No. Ideas are public.
Anyway.
So, a lot of people are like, Zooey Deschanel in anything, which she has been. She has been a manic pixie dream girl and stuff. But in New Girl, she's basically a manic pixie dream girl, but annoying, so it doesn't work.
Right. I mean, I would say New Girl is a critique of the manic pixie dream girl in precisely that way, right? She kind of thinks of herself as that sort of quirky, happy character who brings joy to people, but the three guys that she lives with are annoyed as hell. Even the one who is in eventually, after several seasons, in a relationship with her, even he finds her annoying.
Yeah. Which brings us to the two films. One is with Zooey Deschanel in it. That's 500 Days of Summer. And the other one is Spotless Mind of the Eternal Sunshine.
Yes. Eternal Mind of the Spotless Sunshine Mind Spotless? We have trouble with the title. It is, as I recall, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So 500 Days. No, should we end with 500 Days?
Let's start with 500 Days.
Start with 500 Days.
I think so.
So, 500 Days of Summer. There's this guy, he's sad. He lives a hollow life doing cubicle work or something, or is an architect, or some thing that he's not happy with. Then he meets this cute girl.
And he's looking for the one, right?
And he meets this
Welcome to the rom-com.
And then he meets this cute girl. And this cute girl is like the one for him, except for she's not. She's just a random chick, and she's like...
And her name is Summer.
And her name is Summer.
500 Days of Summer. And she's played by Zooey Deschanel.
Yeah, and she's just like, look, I want to have a good time. We can hook up. We can have adventures. We can be wonderful people together. But, like, I don't really want a long-term anything. Like, I'm just here for some fun.
I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm not in love. I'm not looking for love. I'm not, and she says it like not like that over and over and over again, but she says it
throughout the film when he
throughout
says
the film
stuff.
when he says things.
He's like,
and
when we get to
and
that,
he refuses to hear it. He
Yeah.
just does not register.
because he's low key a stalker.
He's not a happy, trustworthy person.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he would hurt her or anything. But,
No.
But like,
yeah.
it's a little unsettling.
Yeah.
And people a lot of the time think that that is an example of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, and it's not.
Well, the reason it's not is because she has a story, and she articulates her own desires. She says repeatedly, this but not this.
Yeah.
Not about fixing you.
And at the end,
Doesn't
fix him.
Right.
Like, there's no, like, twist.
Right. And so, as others have argued, and we 100% agree, that's not an example of a Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Yeah.
If she has story of her own, desires of her own, interests of her own, and she doesn't fix the male protagonist, then it only looks like that trope, but it isn't it. And I think it's arguable that the whole story is written as a critique of that character, of that trope,
or
or
a critique of the protagonist.
Yeah.
In that trope, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just make him slightly worse, and he becomes that person from that thing you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, a very small turn on that story, and you get the series on Netflix, You, which is about a stalker who, through hacking into someone's social media, figures out how to be the perfect person for that person, and then how to, as stalkers often do, cut that person off from all of their other social contacts.
Yes. I mean, we're not saying that film is that. We're saying, like, you could easily go there from that.
Yeah.
Don't misquote us. Now, Spotless Mind
As
of
if
this...
there's a big concern that you're going to go around quoting us.
Yes. Well, I mean, we're famous already. Our whole 2 viewers. Eternal Spotless Sunshine of the Mind is our next one.
What would you like to say about that?
I totally have seen it, and am going to just test you on what you say about it.
I saw it so long ago that I don't feel like I have total control of it, although I have gone back to see clips and look at things and remind myself. I still do not want to present myself as having some kind of expertise about this film.
You got more than me.
It's a great film, and you should definitely watch it. But again, in a I would say a much more creative, more interesting way than 500 Days of Summer. But similarly, I think it's a critique of the it's internal to the film. It's a critique of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, and people confuse the critique for an example.
Yeah.
I'm sure many of you have seen it, if you remember, and for those of you who haven't, there's a couple, Jim Carrey and I forget who the woman is, but anyway, both of them have the history of their relationship erased from their memory. Then they meet again, and they recognize each other, and they have flashes of images, but they don't really remember each other because their minds have been wiped, and they get into a relationship again.
Not very well.
And they have to eventually have their memories wiped again.
I wouldn't. If it didn't work the first time, what do you think it will work the second time? Sorry.
Anyway, the reason that this is very obviously a counterexample is...
Well, so first off, she says, in the clips that I have seen, she says, like, I'm not a Manic Pixie Dream Girl. I'm not going to take care of you. I'm not going to fix you.
Outright in those words.
Yeah. I'm not going to fix you. I'm not going to look after you. People come to me expecting that, and I'm tired of it. And then there are parts where she displays vulnerability and has a past, and she like clearly has trust issues, I think.
Yeah, and so in many, many ways she counters the definition of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, and
simply by having depth.
Yes, by having character development.
Yeah.
And So now my question is, why do we want to talk about these films and their counter examples?
Well, I think the important thing here. So first of all, life imitates art, art imitates life. It's a synergetic effect. Woo, cycle. Um,
You say that, and it's way too simplistic. You have to say something more about it than that.
I was about to.
Okay, go.
Interrupter.
Sorry.
I am a man. Let me speak. Um. Anyway, so part of it is that this is used to some degree as indoctrination. You know, for a long time, we have told people who do the work, who are the people who help others, that it's their job to help others, that that's how they're supposed to help others. And we've only represented them as helping others, because why would they be anything autonomous? And I'm not saying this as like only women or only X. I'm talking about anybody who helps anybody. Their job is to help. That's what they get to do.
Okay, that's an enormous overstatement, but it is true, as I hope you'll see if you stick with us in the forthcoming episodes, that this is not a trope that's only about gender, although frequently gender is the place where it's most recognized. But over and over and over again, people from less empowered groups get figured both in real life and in art as being there in order to serve.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Being there in order to provide care.
Yeah.
Being there in order to provide emotional labor for people who are either incompetent to do it, or too busy to do it, or lacking the skills to do it.
Hmm.
Generally speaking, those are white, middle and upper class men.
Yeah. With some variation for gender.
For sure. I mean, there's all kinds of variations, and we will talk about them along the way. But the most common, I mean, and that happens also to be the people in film and television history who have most frequently been protagonists. So it's
mostly
complicated,
the writers.
and also absolutely are mostly the writers. So all these things are kind of hooked together.
That's what I meant by you don't get to be outside of it.
Yeah.
Right? I don't mean like literally you can't be outside of it, but like it's so there and so like oppressively existing that it feels like you don't have a choice.
Right.
Right. And also that the misuse of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl speaks to a larger problem, which is that people, when even presented with
a critique.
With a critique, a fleshed out character, all of the things that make this person not that, they don't see it.
Right. So, I mean, both of these films are perfect examples, right? That the films arguably are themselves critique of the trope, right? They're suggesting each in their own way that being seen as a manic pixie dream girl is a failure on the part of the protagonist to understand the female counterpart appropriately, right? That's what the films are saying.
Yeah.
And yet people look at the films and see those female characters as manic pixie dream girls and put them on the list of manic pixie dream girls.
And fail completely.
Yeah, which suggests that it's very, very hard to get out of that trope and out of that mindset to get people to see that there's something more complicated going on.
Yeah, to get
because it's so powerful an idea.
Yeah, and I mean, the kind of general idea, the kind of thing that will apply probably to everybody no matter who they are, is that when you get into a carer role, right, when you're looking after somebody, they don't see the work you're doing because it's not physical, and they don't see the needs that you have because they are entrenched in their own needs. So you end up being to them a 2D person.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to end.
Yeah. So we'll show you I mean, we'll do some episodes next time.
Yep.
After this, we might do censorship, maybe. I don't know. But
So
feel free to, leave
some
suggestions in the comments.
Right. We have some ideas for the rest of this series and for some other things to come. But if you have ideas of things that you would like to see us talk about, please leave them in the comments. If you have comments on anything that we've said in this or the previous episode, please let us know. We're totally... part of the reason that we want to do this is because we would like to hear from you, and we're totally psyched to hear criticisms. We are not afraid, so please do come. Don't harsh for the sake of being harsh, but if you have something to say,
like you missed,
feel free to
this,
say
or
it. Yep.
You didn't do
whatever
that, or...
whatever, we're ready. And do please subscribe, like, come back for the next episode. We would love to have a real discussion build as a part of doing this series.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging in, and we will see you soon.
Tag fort.
Thanks.